Okay, so hear me out. I'm going over names for Ruby's new name because she can't be Corazon if she's going to be Alaskan. Or, I mean, technically she's not human. Technically she's not a real person. Technically she's a mortal princess of the underworld whose parents are Persephone and Hades. But people in the real world don't know that. She lives a double life. They don't know that she's immortal, or that she works for the Ministry of Souls and that she's a high-ranking lieutenant for the Ministry of Souls in the Historical Grief Department. So in the video game and in the comic book, she's going to be called Lieutenant Ruby Taku. Now, in Māori, Taku means my, so she'd be called My Ruby, which is significant because of the fact that her father, she's like the gem of his eye. She's his little princess, and he's overbearingly, comedically, beautifully protective of his little girl. And she's trying to like stand on her own 2 feet, but you know she's his precious. And when my mum died, I inherited her ruby ring. My mum's favourite gem was a ruby. And so there's a little bit of my mama in there. I inherited her ring. It was all I wanted when she died. I wanted my mum's ring and my dad's army medals. I was there when my dad bought the ring for my mum when we immigrated to Australia, because they had fallen in love all over again. And I can't remember if he bought it for an anniversary or a birthday. I can't remember when he bought it, why he bought it, but I know he bought it and he took me to the jewellery shop to show me, and I fell in love with it, and so did my mum. And she only wore it on special occasions because it was worth a lot of money. It's probably the most expensive thing my father ever bought my mother, because when we moved to Australia, they were doing well. He was making good money and he wanted to buy her this gift of the ruby and diamond ring. So when she died, that's all I wanted was my mum's ring. And I got it. So I named the Soul Collector Ruby because it is my favourite stone too. Even though I'm a Scorpio and my stone is topaz, my favourite gem is ruby. And it was my mum's. And so getting my mum's ruby and diamond ring was everything to me, because it was her stone, and because my dad was Aries and their stone is diamond. So it was mum and dad fused together in one ring, which is why I wanted the ring. So she's Lieutenant Ruby she's Lieutenant Ruby Taku because her father named her My Ruby, my precious gem. Now, she's also named after the Taku River. I hope I'm not offending anyone, the Taku tribe or anything like that. Technically speaking, Taku means salmon, so she'd be called the Ruby Salmon. But we're just going to go off the river. And I'm even going to put it in the game that somebody is going to say to her, because there's a Ruby River in Montana as well. So, Ruby Salmon, Ruby River. So I'm going to put it in the game that somebody said, why were you named after a river? And she's going to say, well, my mother is Persephone, my father's Hades. And when my mother was coming up to deal with the equinox, my dad would go fishing at his favourite spot. So I'm named after my my father's favourite fishing spot, because he would go fishing when my mother was coming up to deal with the equinox. And apparently it's where I was conceived. Like that sort of thing. So yeah, Ruby Taku, my Ruby, or Ruby River. Now, the interesting thing about it being called the Ruby River, who being called Ruby River, or my Ruby, is because in my grandmother tree dream, and I've got it well documented. Remember when she climbs the grandmother tree and people are like, oh my God, you can't be climbing the grandmother tree. And she's like, just ignoring them because it's like, shut up, that's my grandmother. And my grandmother was just, the grandmother tree was just so happy to have me home. In my dream, I talk about a red river behind the tree, a red river flowing behind the tree. But I didn't understand what it meant. And I've spent a long time trying to figure out why there was a red river flowing behind this tree, behind the grandmother tree. But now it all makes sense. So Ruby River, the Red River, is my connection to Alaska, to the Taku River. And because in Māori that means my river. But for Ruby, she's going to be my Ruby, or the Ruby River, basically. The Ruby Salmon River. Because, because of where she was conceived. Because Hades is infatuated with Persephone. He's so deeply in love with Persephone that, he doesn't want to let her out of his sights. And so in order to take her and be his wife, and she was fully in agreement with him because she loved him too, he made a deal with Demeter that he would let her come up for the equinoxes so that she could fulfill her role in the changing of the seasons, and for the equinoxes. And then she gets to visit her mother and stuff, but they're deeply in love. And so they conceive Ruby at the river where her father likes to fish. But also as well, in my Head of the Eagle dream, remember at the start of the dream that I recorded in 2019 how I came flying out of the darkness into the light like a shooting star and land at the foot of Head of the Eagle and the buffalo. We walk across the desert together and get to the river. And we see my sons and all the children from around the world standing on the other side, the spawn. You can't make this stuff up. And they were holding a baby, our baby. And so we were like, okay, if we're going to do this, let's do this. Like, just effort, let's do this. So we just held hands, meaning joining forces, ran across the river to the kids on the other side. And my boys handed Head of the Eagle the baby. And then all the kids gave him a big hug, and I was happy because I said the children have saved my husband. And then I turned into a burst of light and flew off. So she's Ruby Taku, my Ruby, or Ruby River. Ruby Salmon, however you want to look at it, it was all in my dreams. The Red River, the Ruby River, the Red River, the Salmon River, whatever you want to call it, the Taku River, was the river behind the grandmother tree in the dreams that I've been having since I was 4, which means I was always meant to write the Soul Collector. And the Soul Collector, if I don't get to make Halo, is going to be our first AAA game, and it's going to be centred around Anchorage in Alaska, and and she's got to, I'm not going into the storyline, but I really, really, really want to try and find a voice actress from the Taku tribe, from the Taku clan, from someone who's like Tlingit, Lingit, it's pronounced, websites, there's 3 different ways to pronounce it. But I'm a Kiwi and we pronounce words the way they're spelt, so that's why I say Tlingit. But I want the voice actress to be a true blue, fair dinkum Taku girl. So she'd have to be in her 20s. She's going to have to know how to, have a love of acting, or I mean, she's going to be the main character in a video game that's like a cross between Tomb Raider, Call of Duty, and Far Cry. And she's going to be a comic book heroine. And maybe one day we'll make a movie. I have no plans to make the Soul Collector into a movie, but the Soul Collector series will also be a radio story series as well, which I think is going to do really well for people that live off grid. They can tune into the radio station and listen to like our stories and stuff. Even the Time Jumping Detective can be turned into a radio series. The Quantum Menace sagas, the Soul Collector series, and the Time Jumping Detective, they can all be turned into radio stories that people who are living off grid can tune in to listen to. So yeah, so whoever, like I want the actress to be authentically Taku, from the Taku people. So she's going to be in her 20s. Yeah, and she'll be based on whatever she looks like in the comic book, as part of my Beyond Life program, which I was also thinking. I'll have to get in contact with. I've got to look to see any prisons that are in and around Anchorage, and approach them in regards to doing my Beyond Life comic book program, which my nephew Jacob will be in charge of. So, yeah, Ruby Taku, Lieutenant Ruby Taku. For now, that's what I've got so far. It feels right. It's based on, like when I researched the name, all I saw was my grandmother tree dream, and I thought, holy flip flop, the red river, the red sand. It was red sand, but it was a river. It was like a red sand river. And I spent my entire life trying to figure out what the significance of that red sand river was. And now I know. The conception of the Soul Collector. So there must be something, this video game and comic book and that I'm creating, the Soul Collector, it must be something really important. But it's bringing together the two ancestors, because in Māori it means my ruby, my ruby gem, my gem. But to the indigenous peoples of the Tlingit and Taku River, it means my river, my salmon river, or sorry, red river or red salmon river. And I am a water sign, and she is a nature goddess. Even in Lucian's dragon, Anahita is a Undine, which is like a Persian water goddess. So it's all, and because water is intuition and emotions, and my intuition led me straight to Alaska, to my people. And it's been quite an emotional roller coaster ride since I discovered it, ever since. So yeah, so she's going to be called Lieutenant Ruby Taku. And when people say, why are you named after a river? Because was my father's favourite fishing spot. It's where I was conceived. I am the spawn of the salmon. That's what she's going. The salmon spawn. And because in the dream from my Head of the Eagle dream from 2019, it was all the kids and babies and that waiting on the other side. So the spawn, they're, they're the future of my foundation. So whoever it is that I end up with, whoever Head of the Eagle is, we're destined for something really big in terms of what we're going to be doing for both of our cultures and the children. And I think that based on the dream, the Head of the Eagle dream, where I landed at his feet and we wandered through the desert and all that together, went on that big journey together, and then, bridged the gap by joining forces and letting all our emotions out, which was running across the river, to get to the children on the other side. I think that I've turned up in his life, or I will have turned up in his life at a time when he needed me, when he needed us, when he maybe was bored or given up hope or lost faith, or I don't know, like, because when the kids hugged him, he was so happy. He came to life. He came to life. It's the only way I can describe it in the dream. And watching him come to life and seeing how much my children and the children loved him and how much he meant to my sons in the dream, and that, knowing what he meant to my sons, it made me burst into the light of love, because I was just so happy, because it was like finally everything was in place and we were heading on the right track and we were together and he'd been saved. So I think I'm going to meet him at a time when he's been going through something and maybe was in a dark place, and I dropped at his feet like a shooting star and set his world ablaze, and then bring him into the light, and then we create something together that's bigger than the both of us, on behalf of both of our ancestors who are ancestrally one and the same. So I think the soul collector and everything I'm creating, and him and our union and the role that he plays in my son's life, and the life of our children and us as a couple, it's bigger than even what I'm realising, I think. Ancestrally, spiritually, business-wise. So, yeah. But yeah. Ruby Taku. Lieutenant Ruby Taku. So, Ruby Corazon is dead. Detective Ruby Corazon is dead. She's Lieutenant Ruby Taku. For now. It might change. I might find another name that fits more perfectly to the grandmother tree dream, but that's how it is now, and I'm quite happy with it. It's a great way to honour both of our sides. It's infused with Māori. Anyone who's Māori is going to look at it and go, oh, my Ruby. But anyone who is from around that area, the Tlingit Haida people and that, they're going to look at her name and go, oh, she's named after the river. Or, oh, she's named after our tribe, our people. Which is why I want to find a voice actress of the Taku people, if I can, to do her voice. So there we go. Another rebirth. So I'll speak to you later. Ka kite.